IT 341, Integrated Project Delivery for Industrial Projects. Collaborate, integrate, succeed. Collaboration and integration can help you to successfully deliver your industrial projects. Learn which changes to current practices can make the IPD approach effective for industrial projects. Here to present their findings are Michael Dubreuil, PTAG, Dale Profitt, Jacobs, Scott Westbrook, Occidental Petroleum, Doug Gransberg and Associates, Phil Barutha, Iowa State University, Bruce Burwell, Ontario Power Generation, and from Victaulic, your moderator, Steve Gabriel.
Hello, everybody. Integrated Project Delivery, or IPD, is a delivery method that's been developed over the past 20 years and generally been successful in building construction. But despite this success, it's not frequently used in industrial projects. So our research team was chartered to find out why. Was there any modifications that needed to be made to IPD to make it more applicable to industrial projects? So the focus of our research is called Industrial Integrated Project Delivery, or I2PD. So as we get started, we're going to revisit something that was said by Brendan Bechtel a couple years ago on this very stage that still resonates today.
So as I said before, make no mistake, our house is on fire. If we don't drastically improve the performance and the delivered project outcomes on which our customers are betting their companies, their personal reputations, their careers, they will go somewhere else to meet their needs. They will go to the manufacturing sector. They will find other ways to invest their capital in ways that are more certain and that lead to better outcomes for their shareholders. And then this creates a real credibility issue for us as an industry, I think.
Our house is on fire. That's pretty powerful. All right, so what we're introducing is a major, game-changing research discovery. We're taking collaboration and integration and combining it to result in certainty. This result is going to translate to better performing industrial projects as a whole. With that, I'll hand it to Phil.
Thank you, Stephen. So there's an abundance of project experience in this room. Some really, really good projects, some not so good projects, and I'm sure there's quite a few projects we'd like to forget entirely. So I'd just like to take a minute to share my personal experience working in a highly complex, large-scale project that used high amounts of structured, integrated processes to turn a series of disastrous events into a success story. Christchurch, New Zealand experienced two devastating earthquakes, one in 2010 and the other in 2011, leaving the city crippled. A highly integrated alliance was created with a contract value of $2.2 billion New Zealand, spread over 5 years to rebuild the city of Christchurch following these two disastrous earthquakes. The Stronger Christchurch Infrastructure Rebuild Team, or the SCIRT Alliance, consisted of 3 public agencies and 5 private contracting firms tasked with rebuilding the infrastructure of this devastated city over the course of 5 years. And they worked as one project team, sharing all resources, risks, and rewards as well. This alliance is an example of how using the highest levels of structured collaboration and integration can overcome significant project complexities and uncertainties. To me, the most telling performance metric following completion of the rebuild work in 2016 was found from the results of a survey issued to the residents of the city of Christchurch, who are the ultimate customers of the SCIRT Alliance. It found that 80% of the citizens of Christchurch were satisfied with the work performed within the alliance, while only 25% were satisfied with the work performed outside of the alliance using traditional methodology. So let's take a minute now to hear from the industrial sector. An energy company, EnLink, has started a new program called the Project Playbook, which is a delivery strategy to incorporate more collaboration and integration processes to all phases of an industrial capital project. Let's listen to Vice President Cindy Jaggi and Vice President Jared LaRue with EnLink as they share their experience with the use of more collaboration and integration delivering industrial projects.
Jared and I have worked for EnLink for probably about 6 or 7 years when we really decided to take the movement of doing the Project Playbook. And at that point, man, projects here were hard. And we had some good projects, we had some bad projects, and we had some ugly projects. And really, we looked at it and we wanted to stop having ugly projects. And so we really recognized that we couldn't get any better if we didn't work together and get a collective knowledge and a process in place to really get consistency and get better.
The project is really the whole company. It's everybody collaborating from accounting to operations to environmental. And with the Project Playbook, it really spelled out everybody's role so everybody knew who was a part of what project and what their role was.
There's two things that I always tell people when it comes to the Project Playbook. And the first one is that there's a team. We're gonna hold each other accountable and we're gonna work together as a team to run these projects. And the second piece of it is the process. So the process enables us to say, okay, you know what to expect of me, and I know what to expect of you, and therefore we can move together really efficiently and run these massive projects together. Last year in 2017, we had over 90% of our major projects were on budget. And over 70% of our projects were on schedule. And I can tell you that's not something that happens in our industry every day.
I2PD significantly promotes enhanced collaboration and integration, delivering success. These two charts are from one of CII member companies, and they show 15 projects, 7 of which were done with traditional delivery methods, and as you can see, 1 successful project. 5 of them were done using IPD. All 5 projects were successful. So this morning, what we're going to talk to you about is the challenges we all face as an industry. We heard from Brendan. Then we're going to talk to you about our research. And what we're going to show you is the results of our research and how it leads to project outcomes where certainty is almost guaranteed. That in and of itself is not enough. We're going to talk about implementation and how you can benefit from implementing I2PD. And then we're going to talk about next steps.
So the key findings from this study were a product of extensive research performed by a collaborative team of professionals in the industrial engineering and construction sector. As you can see, the results of this research were developed over a course of years, starting with the original idea in 2015. The findings from this research have been so compelling that it sparked the desire to pilot this I2PD framework on actual industrial projects moving forward. Before we get into our research findings, we want to take a minute to first describe where we're currently at as an industry.
So we've heard all the studies. Every year we face at different conferences, this conference, you know, as Brandon Bechtel said, 98% of projects over $1 billion face 80% cost overruns. Merrill found that 65% of mega projects failed to meet their business objectives. Ernst & Young, mega project study, 73% have significant schedule delays. And most telling, as we compare ourselves to other industries, our projects have a 57% waste compared to manufacturing, where they're looking at 26% waste. And you know, several folks have looked into the reasons why, and as this will tell you, this slide will tell you, if you just look at the green and blue pie chart pieces, those numbers add up to 65%. You'll have to trust me on that. But look at it. Management factors and organizational factors are the dominant reason our projects face challenges. And who's responsible for that? We are. Everybody in this room. Our peers that aren't in this room, that fill the same roles that we fill, are responsible for the success or failure of our projects. It's not labor, it's not external factors for the most part, it's us. The challenge is that our lack of success is not just cost overruns, it's not just schedules, delays, but real world consequences. Iron workers killed on a crane collapse. Deepwater Horizon, in addition to the 6 million barrels of oil in the Gulf, 11 people lost their lives. Most recently, in Miami, a bridge collapse, killing commuters on their way to work because of a design flaw.
So how do we improve these failures? We want to walk you through what we have concluded based on our research findings is one way to improve project performance certainty on industrial projects. I2PD is a delivery method that fundamentally enhances project collaboration and integration. So this graph shows us the evolution of project delivery methods over the course of the last 50+ years. Design, bid, build is a transactional contracting approach where the delivery method intentionally separates the owner, the designer, and the contractor, and relies heavily on rigid specifications and controls to complete the project. Industrial project delivery evolved to a more single-point risk transfer model, assigning the design to the contractors building the project, thus integrating the design with construction. However, this model is also a transactional contracting approach that separates the owner and the project risk from the design builder. Transactional contracts optimize individual project participants' performance, but may not optimize the overall performance of the project. I2PD is an outcome-focused delivery method incorporating high levels of collaboration and integration amongst project participants, including the owner, the designer, and the contractor, and relies on good structured communication. This delivery method is viewed as a relational contracting approach with appropriate project risk sharing amongst the project stakeholders. And as illustrated in the graph, as collaboration, integration, and communication increased, trust is also enhanced. So let's just take a minute to review the background of risk-sharing contracting strategies. So alliancing started in the oil and gas industry in the North Sea in the early 1990s as a way to share project risks. Alliancing then migrated to Australia and New Zealand to become a preferred delivery method within the civil infrastructure project delivery sector. And in parallel, integrated project delivery, or commercial IPD, was developed in North America's mostly healthcare industry as a way to utilize lean techniques and bring more value to the entire delivery of the project. Commercial IPD, we found, has a heavy emphasis on collaboration with the idea to enhance design optimization. The IPD experience has been very positive over the last decade, as Steve had mentioned earlier. And one documented study actually stated that higher quality facilities are faster with no significant cost increase and higher owner satisfaction. Alliancing on civil infrastructure projects in Australia and New Zealand have seen these similar performance results, yielding 3.5% cost savings and 2 to 7% time savings. Now, alliancing has a little bit longer track record of performance history than commercial IPD, but places a higher emphasis on integration, the integration principles, to enhance better construction risk management on the project. So the previous slide, a couple slides ago, showed us the evolution of project delivery methodology on industrial projects. This diagram identifies the specific components and culture of the various delivery methods. You see here, design, bid, build utilizes transactional contracting to transfer the project risks and create a win-lose and best-for-me culture that has a defined decision-making hierarcy. whereas design build in EPC added some elements of more collaboration and integration, such as early involvement of key participants, as well as partnering and team building, front-end planning, in some cases 3D models, and co-located offices. I2PD is a progression to a completely integrated project delivery method, shifting from a transactional contract to a relational contract, incorporating project risks and rewards and more collaborative decision-making process focused on what's best for the project as opposed to what's best for me. This methodology uses high levels of trust, collaboration, integration, and open communication with the aim at improving performance of the entire project, such as improved safety, earlier cost and schedule certainty, as well as better optimized designs.
So our research found that I2PD is based on 9 principles. 5 of those principles come out of the commercial IPD world. As you can read there, continuous communication, collaborative and equitable decision-making, and they help mitigate design risk and promote design optimization. The remaining 4 come out of the alliancing world and promote integration. And they're designed to mitigate construction risk. When you put these principles together, we end up with what we call the foundation for I2PD. The goal here is in industrial projects, it has elements of the commercial project world, hence the collaboration and the design optimization, and it has elements of the infrastructure world, significant emphasis on construction risk management. The 9 principles together are the foundation upon which we found that I2PD is built. Those principles are delivered into projects using these 20 different methods. And you're going to recognize many of these methods. There's not a new method there that hasn't been around industry for at least 20 years. But it's the combination of those methods in support of those principles, as Phil will talk to you about, and the intensity of the use of those methods that provide the outcome that our research has shown.
Okay, here's the math involved with our research project. So this is what's called the CI index, or the Collaboration Integration Index. And it's a mathematical formula that we developed in the research to use as a metric to measure both those principles and methods that Michael was talking about that were used on an industrial project. The idea is to create a numeric value with which we can use to measure collaboration and integration on each project. So the index ranged from 0 to 100, with 0 having no CI and 100 having the most amount of CI that you could have on an industrial project. So to calculate the amount of CI used on the project, we measured how many of the collaboration integration principles were used and at what intensity. And we combined those with the CI methods that Michael had discussed. And we measured how many of those were used on the project, as well as the intensity level with which they were used. So the total amount of CI principles and methods combined with their overall intensity in each project gives us each project-specific CI index on that scale of 0 to 100. So this was our data set that we used to evaluate project performance versus collaboration and integration. We used an industry-wide survey where we collected data from 85 projects across all of the CII industry sectors. Our target participants were project managers and executives. The average years of experience that responded to the survey were 29 years of experience working on industrial projects. And we had asked those individuals with 29 years of experience identify one career project as having a high amount of collaboration and integration. And then we asked them to evaluate how many of those principles were used on that project, at what intensity, and how many of those methods were used on the project at that level of intensity. And then we also asked them to identify the top performance metrics used to determine project success on that project. The most frequent responses we received were these. They weren't the only ones, but were mostly identified on our survey: safety, quality, client satisfaction, cost, and schedule certainty. So this graph represents the results of the industry survey, with each dot representing one of the 85 projects. On our x-axis is that collaboration and integration index, or CI index. Remember, that's a scale 0 to 100. You see here, we only go to 50. So our industrial projects, there's some room for growth in this area. Our highest rated project was in the mid-40s for CI usage. On the y-axis is our average performance from 1 to 5, 5 being the best performing project of their career, 1 the worst performer.
And so when the academic team presented this very chart to the research team, and they put it up there, we looked at that chart, and there was silence for about a minute, and you could hear, wow, aha. So I'm going to ask you each to take a few seconds to take a look at that chart and try and identify what we've found. Phil's going to take you through some statistical analysis of this, but we think it's pretty obvious just from the raw data.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So we'll just add some simple basic statistics to this graph. So if we just look at the mean for the CI index, which is 14, and the mean for the project performance, which is 3.8 and some change, we definitely start to see a pattern and trend develop, as Michael has stated. Now, if we just take that even one step further with some basic statistics, we add the quartiles. So if we add that 75% quartile to CI, and we evaluate the bottom lower 25% quartile of project performance, we really see that trend develop. And oftentimes in research, we don't always look at what's there, but what's not there. And if you look at that bottom right quadrant, I think that speaks volumes to us. It is just null and void of any projects. Meaning if we get beyond that 75% quartile of usage of collaboration integration on a project, we don't see any poorly performing projects. Now for the statisticians in the room, we tested the correlation of CI used in project performance, and the results were consistent with the visual pattern of the data that Michael had discussed. We found a very high degree of correlation from CI index and average project performance, as demonstrated by that p-value, that very low p-value there.
So this chart is the same as the chart previous, but it's for all us non-statisticians. And if you took a look in the top right-hand quadrant, all those projects with high collaboration and integration index, they're all successful projects. And they're powerfully successful. Those with low CI index, some of them are successful, some of them fail. It's random. It's not certain, the outcome. As we looked at the data for the low CI projects, well, we couldn't find any correlation with any of the data as to why projects were successful. But what we did find is a slight correlation to poor leadership for those projects that weren't successful. Another way of putting that is if you have a low collaboration and integration index on your project, it takes almost superhuman effort to keep that project on that successful vertical line. Whereas if you use lots of collaboration and high levels of integration, the business processes and the structure of your project overcomes any individual deficiencies, and the processes keep your project focused on that successful vertical line.
All right, coming back to the statistics. So applying just some additional statistical analysis to our project data set, this graph shows the final results of our study. So here the axes are the same X, same Y. This time what we did was we grouped the 85 projects into bins of 5, from levels of CI, basically levels of highest CI to levels of low. So this chart represents the arrangement of the 17 group project bins, and we can clearly see a high amount of performance of variability in the bin set, the group set of projects that were using that lower end of CI. But once we reach a certain threshold of CI used, we almost see a direct linear correlation to project performance in CI used on the industrial projects. So these results indicate when a certain amount and level of intensity of collaboration and integration principles and methods are utilized, the project performance reaches high levels of certainty, as reflected by our strong correlation factor of above 95%. So let's take a minute to hear a testimonial video. I'd like to introduce John Strickland, IPD Practice Director of Jacobs Engineering, and Executive Vice President Jim Kick of Century Construction, as they talk about their experience using higher levels of collaboration and integration on an industrial IPD project. So John has many years of experience delivering industrial projects through collaboration and integration, and he's having a conversation with Jim of Century as he's explaining his very first experience using industrial IPD.
I'm Jim Kick. I'm Vice President of Century Contractors. We're based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're part of the team for an IPD project right from the very beginning in the selection process. The owner felt it was very important to select a team that could solve their problem for them,
Right.
which was to build this plant quickly, safely, on time, and within budget. We had to throw away all the conventional thinking about how we've ever done pre-construction as well as construction on the job. It was a collaborative effort that you were focused on being one team as opposed to individual contractors. And that's a different mindset for a lot of people. And we've never been involved at the very beginning in the design concept, and it was refreshing to see that everybody checked their egos at the door. Nobody had any preconceived notions that, you know, this is my way and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
It was laid open flat, and everybody just came up with ideas that were outside the box of normal realm of thinking.
Did the CDS have any advantages in schedule or in helping the owner get to where they were trying to go?
Absolutely. It brought the owner a price certainty right at the very beginning of the job. It made him aware that the budget that he was originally looking at wasn't valid, and that we went through the detailed scoping process with QuickBase, setting up the functional scope elements, then diving deep into the scope of work, that we could figure out what the actual cost was going to be. The project turned out very well. We met the client's conditions of satisfaction. In fact, we met the fiber ready for shipment milestone yesterday, which was a really good thing because now they can start producing their fiber. When you sit back in retrospect and you look at how the job was done, it's better than any other job that we ever performed because of the dialogue and the open communication and focusing as one team as opposed to an individual contractor. You really have the interest of the owner at heart.
So I'm now going to talk to you about implementation. I mean, the research is compelling. I've been doing this for 35 years, and the results are just compelling. But research, without all of us implementing it, is just research. We're here for business benefits to our industry, and so the research team has spent a significant amount of time at trying to understand how we can help all of us here implement this research. This model of the Parthenon is meant to help you visualize the various components because you can get lost in the 9 principles and the 20 methods. So the key idea here is I2PD is built on a foundation of collaboration and integration. And that collaboration and integration supports the 9 principles. And they, in turn, are executed through the 20 methods that we've come up with that, through research, help deliver on those principles. And that leads to the business value that I think we're all looking to get.
So this chart is to help your organization determine the best ways to implement each of the methods that Michael had just discussed, the execution methods, how best to implement them in the I2PD framework. The chart is organized by impact of each method on project collaboration as well as project integration. Our impact to project collaboration is on the x-axis. Our impact to project integration is on the y-axis. And those methods closer to the origin, or in that bottom left-hand quadrant, are lower impact overall to integration and collaboration. Now, the methods that are further away from the origin, or in that upper right quadrant, What we've found in the research are higher impact methods to overall collaboration, integration, such as strategic partnerships, joint risk assessment, and constructability planning. Now, some of the methods, such as use of technology as integration tool and alternative scheduling methodology, those methods are high in collaboration, but not quite as high as driving integration on a project, as defined in the I2PD framework. Now, those in the upper left quadrant, such as multi-party agreement and contract incentives, are just the opposite. They're high in impacting overall team integration, on the project, but lower on collaboration within that project team. What else? The other thing that we discovered in the research was the methods on the bottom left hand of the chart are methods that are easier to implement, while the methods in the top left are a little bit more difficult to implement with most organizations. So it seems to be the effort to implement seems to follow a counterclockwise pattern on this chart. Basically, it means that the harder to implement are also the higher to impact. But many of these methods are already being deployed today and can be easy wins for your organizations as you move to incorporate more collaboration and integration on your projects.
So to help you and all of us determine where we are as an organization in terms of getting ready to implement I2PD as a delivery method, we've developed a maturity model, maturity questionnaire, with about 40 questions that takes you through a self-assessment. And the idea there is to find out how much of this we're already using. Are we prepared? Is our ecosystem, is our vendor community ready to step into this new delivery model? And at the end of this process, it'll provide some indication as to where you need to spend a little bit of time investing in maybe one or two of the methods to get you to the point where you're ready to implement. And this is presented in a variety of charts that look like this chart on the next page, and it ranks you in terms of where your organization is. Those of us on the research team, the 20-odd companies, we all went through this maturity assessment, and we found that we're in the later stage of 1 or midway through 2. So even though we're heavily involved in the research, what we found is we've got some work to do to get not only ourselves, but our suppliers, our vendors, et cetera, ready to go on this journey.
So in summary, we've developed a suite of key deliverables and outputs of RT 341 to provide the necessary resources for your organizations to start down this journey of more collaboration and integration on your capital projects. You can see we'll provide an implementation guide, an I2PD implementation guide that will have that maturity model that Michael had just discussed included, as well as a process workflow to help you structure and deliver your projects using all these principles and methods, and then provide some methods examples of how they're used on industrial projects today. We'll also have some I2PD contract templates that will incorporate some key collaboration and integration clauses, as well as some incentive examples. And then finally, we'll have a I2PD training module package that will help educate your colleagues and yourself around you on I2PD delivery. Please see us after the presentation. We'll be at the booth 117, the VIP booth, and we can go through more detailed information if you'd like to hear it on any of these deliverables.
So what's next? All of us want project certainty. All of us want success in our projects. It's why we're here today. So as we looked at the research, we thought, great results. What can we do to accelerate implementation of I2PD within CII membership? So I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about what we think is next steps. But one such company, Ontario Power Generation, has decided to move forward and pilot I2PD on a series of projects in the hydroelectric refurbishment world. And so I'm going to let Bruce Burwell and Amy Cameron talk to you about why they decided to pilot I2PD.
So Bruce, Ontario Power Generation has decided to undertake an IPD project delivery method at the Otto Holden generating station, which is going to involve an overhaul. And so why did OPG decide to utilize that delivery method?
Well, we were looking to do things a little differently. Our traditional delivery method or contracting strategy was design, bid, build. And over the years, we've had an increase in both cost and schedule. So through our research, it's been identified that we can provide certainty to our executive team, and our executive team, once we had the discussions regarding IPD and what IPD could provide, we had the full support of our executives to proceed with the pilot.
And so do you have certain expectations of the pilot?
Yes, so we're looking for cost certainty, we're looking for schedule certainty, and if we can return the generator back to service on time and on budget or ahead of schedule, the generation revenue gain by even advancing the schedule by a couple of weeks would be truly beneficial for OPG.
So our next step is a call out to all of you, and we're looking for interested parties to participate in additional pilots. There are things we'd like to learn on the pilot, which methods are the best methods, which of the principles are the most important principles. And for those of us that are business guys, we're looking to get hard answers that say, if I use this as a delivery method compared to my existing delivery methods, is there a 10% cost reduction? Is there a 5% improvement on schedule as compared to the way I do it today? So we're looking for 30 projects. Next door, as Phil talked about, and on your tables is an expression of interest. If you want to hear more about the pilot programs, please sign up. Come and see us. You can identify us. We're all wearing these I2PD pins if you've got any questions. And so the goal is, at the end of these pilots, to refine the methods, the contract templates, the training modules, so it's easy to implement, not just for CII members, but for non-CII members. And the goal, the end goal, is to make this a CII best practice. And we think we'll be there when we have 50% of the membership using I2PD as one of their project delivery methods. And with that, I'll turn it back to Stephen.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael and Phil. We're going to have an opportunity to answer some of the questions that have been coming in throughout the presentation. And let's get started. All right. The first question, how does I2PD differ from IPD and or alliancing or other delivery methods?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. If you think about it, the commercial IPD is design-centric. Alliancing is construction-centric. And in I2PD, we've changed the objective function for business decision-making from trying to maximize savings to maximizing certainty. And in the process, what I2PD does is it changes the focus to asset-centric, not just get the perfect design, get a great project, get the perfect construction, get a great project, but get an asset that's going to return the investment that the stockholders wanted to get.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. Next question that's come in is, how do I get started in I2PD? And how do I know my organization is ready?
That's a great question, Steve. So I guess what I would say is it just really needs to begin with a desire to change. So just show of hands, how many people here have worked on a project that was over budget or behind schedule? Come on, really? Not everyone? Okay. Yeah, so I think if you look at the research, what we're finding is that if you have a collaboration index, integration index, higher than, it was 20% on a scale of 1 to 100, you can drastically improve the results you can get to get that certainty that we're looking for schedule and for cost. I think just the desire to want to do that is really what we need to get started.
Great answer. So next question is, what types of projects would be the best fit for I2PD?
Oh, that's a great question. In the view of the research team and myself, the actual intent is this methodology could be applied to all projects, from your smallest to your mid-range to your most complex to your mega projects. I think in practical terms, and maybe to tie it to the earlier presentation of just trying to nudge your organization in a new direction, I would recommend people consider some of their smaller, probably more routine projects, things that have a shorter duration so you can have continuity of team members and staff throughout, projects that would be perfect for the pilot program. And that way you have solid benchmarks probably internally on a certain type of project and how successful you've been, and then you can have direct data from the new I2PD methodology to benchmark and compare your success against that.
Thank you. What are the risks of implementing I2PD on an industrial project?
Well, I think the concept of risk is tied up into the concept of certainty. And so the major risk that I've seen in my career is the human risk, that this will never work, that it's all about me, and trying to get into a collaborative contractual arrangement where we have multi-party contracts and pain share, gain share schemes is something that's going to be really intimidating to the average organization, and that's going to require that increase in maturity that our maturity model tries to address, so that implementers, early implementers, will be able to recognize where they really are with regard to collaboration integration methods, and then be able to look for that low-hanging fruit, those methods that are going to work well in their market sector, they're going to work well on a specific project.
Thank you, Doug. We didn't get an opportunity to go through all the questions that came in, so I'd like to personally invite everybody to come see us over at Meet the VIP in the next room over and have a chance to ask those questions and get those questions answered. Also, as Michael and Phil have both stated, everybody on the research team is wearing one of the I2PD pins, even those who weren't able to join us up here on stage. So I'd encourage you to track one of them down and dive in a little bit more as to how to become a pilot. Also, first 100 folks to come over to the booth and fill out an expression of interest will receive one of these one-of-a-kind I2PD pins. So with that, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.